There comes a time in every life when the weight is too much to bear, when the road is rough and the battle is fierce. You have swung your fists at the wind, cried prayers into the night, and still the mountain refuses to move. But hear me, when God fights your battles, the ground trembles, the seas part, and victory is not just possible, it is promised. God does not fight as man fights. He does not bicker. He does not argue. He does not waste words on those who seek to destroy you. Instead, he stands, he watches, and at the appointed time, he moves. The enemy may come in like a flood, but the Lord in all his power will raise a standard, a divine shield, a holy wall that no weapon can break. You see, the struggle is not yours to carry. The burden is not yours to bear. Too many times we throw ourselves into battles that were never meant to be fought with human hands. We try to defend our names when God has already cleared them. We try to force doors open when He is preparing to break the whole wall down. We exhaust our strength when all we ever needed to do was stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. But standing still does not mean doing nothing. No, child, standing still means trusting. It means surrendering the worry, the fear, the doubt. It means knowing that while you rest, heaven is at war on your behalf. The angels march when you pray. The chains break when you believe. The battle is fought in faith long before it is won in the flesh. There is power in patience, power in stillness, power in knowing that no matter how fierce the storm, the one who commands the wind is already working things out for your good. So do not be afraid, do not be dismayed. Do not waste another tear over enemies that God has already defeated. For when God fights your battles, He does not just bring victory, He brings a testimony that will shake the very foundations of the earth. And when the dust settles, when the war is over and the smoke clears, you will look around and realize one thing. It was never your fight to begin with. It was His. And He has already won. There is something about the way God moves that confounds the mind and stirs the soul. He does not need to announce His presence with thunderclaps or shake the heavens with mighty roars. No, child. He moves in silence, shifting obstacles before you even see them, rearranging the battlefield before you ever set foot upon it. You may not hear Him, but He is working. You may not see Him, but He is present. You may think that heaven is quiet, that your prayers have gone unheard, but rest assured. The silent warrior is already in position. He fights in a way that human eyes cannot perceive, and he wins victories that human hands could never accomplish. So many times we expect God to move with grand gestures, to part the seas in front of us, to send fire from the sky, to shake the ground beneath our enemies. And yes, He can do all of that. He is the God who made the Red Sea stand like walls, the God who brought down Jericho with a shout, the God who raised the dead with a whisper. But more often than not, His power is in the unseen. He is working behind the scenes when you think nothing is happening. He is shifting the hearts of people you have never met, making a way for you before you even know you need it. He is opening doors in rooms you have never entered. He is protecting you from battles you never even knew were waged against you. Consider this. There are times you planned to go somewhere, but a delay kept you back. Frustration rose in your spirit because you thought time had been wasted. But what if that delay was divine? What if God, in His silent strength, was keeping you from danger while you sat there, impatiently tapping your finger? This is the work of the silent warrior. He is always ahead of you, always clearing the path, always making the crooked places straight. Look at Joseph. His life seemed to be a series of betrayals, losses, and hardships. Sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison. And yet through it all, God was moving in silence. He was positioning Joseph not just for personal victory, but for divine purpose. And when the moment came, the boy who was thrown into a pit became the man who ruled a nation. Look at Esther. She was just an orphan girl, unnoticed, unseen. But God was working, placing her in a position where she would one day save an entire people. She did not see the battle being fought in the heavenly places, but she walked into victory because the silent warrior had already secured her path. And you, right now, in the midst of your uncertainty, in the middle of your waiting, God is moving. You may not hear the sound of battle, but He is fighting. You may not see the breakthrough, but it is coming. He is removing enemies before they reach you. He is shifting circumstances so that when you step forward, you step into favor. That opportunity that you thought was lost, God delayed it because something greater was coming. You do not need to chase after justice when the righteous judge is already ruling in your favor. You do not need to fight for what God has already declared as yours. When you walk in faith, you walk in the assurance that your battles are not yours alone. But let me tell you something. When the silent warrior does move openly, when he does reveal his hand, it is undeniable. The very same people who doubted you will stand in awe of what God has done for you. The very ones who spoke against you will watch as God elevates you. And when they ask, "How did this happen?" you will smile, knowing the answer. It was never me, it was never my strength, it was never my power. The silent warrior fought for me, and victory was already mine before the battle even began. There is a dangerous lie that the world tells us, that our success, our victories, and our breakthroughs depend solely on our own strength. We are taught to fight, to push, to struggle, to rely on our own abilities. But let me tell you something. No amount of human strength can compare to the power of divine strategy. No battle is truly won by the might of man alone. Victory comes not by sheer effort, but by God does not fight like we do. He does not need to swing swords or throw punches. He does not panic in the face of opposition, nor does he rush to prove a point. His strategy is higher. His ways are wiser, and his timing is perfect. Think about it. Have you ever tried to force something to happen? You exhausted yourself, pushed beyond your limits, only to find that no matter how hard you worked, the door remained shut. And yet the moment you surrendered, when you stopped fighting in your own strength and placed the battle in God's hands, things shifted. A young shepherd boy with no armor and no military training stepped onto a battlefield where an entire army of strong, experienced soldiers had been paralyzed by fear. Goliath stood tall, confident in his size, his strength, and his weapons. But David understood something that Goliath and even Israel's army did not. Victory does not come from brute force, but from divine backing. David did not rely on a sword, a spear, or his own strength. He did not try to outmatch Goliath in physical power. Instead, he used divine strategy. He stepped forward with nothing but a sling, 5 smooth stones, and unwavering faith in the God who had already won the battle before it began. And with a single stone, 1, not 5, because when God is in control, 1 is enough, Goliath fell. What does this tell us? It tells us that God's way is different from ours. He does not need numbers. He does not need an army. He does not need what the world calls strength. He only needs a heart that trusts Him completely. Many of us are fighting battles that God never intended for us to fight in our own strength. We wrestle with problems, thinking that if we just try harder, we will overcome. We battle rejection, thinking if we prove ourselves, we will be accepted. We fight to open doors that God never intended us to walk through in the first place. But true victory is not about striving. It is about surrendering to God's strategy. Remember Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah? When 3 mighty armies came against his people, he did not waste time devising military tactics. He did not count his soldiers or sharpen his weapons. Instead, he sought the Lord. And God's response? You will not have to fight this battle. Stand firm, hold your position, and see the salvation of the Lord on your behalf. 2 Chronicles 20:17. So Jehoshaphat did something that made no sense in human logic. He sent worshippers ahead of the army. While most nations led their warriors into battle, Judah sent singers. And as they worshipped, the enemy turned on itself. Judah never had to lift a weapon, because divine strategy had already secured the victory. The truth is, human strength has limits. Even the strongest person grows weary. Even the most skilled warrior can be defeated. But God, He never grows tired. He never fails. When He is in control of your battle, defeat is not an option. Are you relying on your own effort, or have you placed your battle in the hands of the one who has never lost a war? Because when God fights for you, the impossible becomes possible. The walls that seemed unbreakable come tumbling down. The enemy that looked undefeatable falls before your feet. And the victory that once seemed out of reach becomes your testimony. So stop wearing yourself out. Stop believing the lie that you have to do it all on your own. Place your battle in the hands of the Almighty. Because when God fights for you, there is only one possible outcome: victory. God does not flinch at the storm. He raises a standard higher than the waves. Life will come at you hard sometimes. There will be moments when the pressure is so heavy, the attack so relentless, that it feels like you are drowning. The enemy does not play fair. He does not knock politely at the door. He comes rushing in like a flood, unannounced, unexpected, and unrelenting. But let me tell you something. God does not flinch at the storm. He does not tremble when the waters rise. He does not wring his hands when the enemy advances. No, child, he stands. And when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord raises a standard higher than the waves. Floods are destructive. They rise suddenly, overwhelm quickly, and leave behind devastation. That is exactly how the enemy works. He brings fear, confusion, and chaos, hoping to shake your foundation. He sends storms to make you believe that God has abandoned you. He may rise, but he cannot go beyond the boundaries that God has set. The storm may rage, but it cannot last forever. The waves may crash, but they cannot pull you under when your anchor is in the Lord. Isaiah 59:19 says, "When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him." That means God is not watching idly as the waters rise around you. He is not silent while you struggle. No, he is actively lifting a barrier, a divine defense, a shield that no force of darkness can break through. Pharaoh and his army came like a flood, chasing after the children of Israel, ready to wipe them out. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The enemy was behind them, and the sea was in front of them. It looked like the end. With one command, the waters that should have drowned them instead parted before them. What was meant to be their destruction became their deliverance. And when the enemy tried to follow, the same waters that stood as a pathway for God's people became a grave for Pharaoh's army. That is what happens when God raises a standard. The very thing the enemy meant to harm you will be the thing God uses to rescue you. The very storm that tried to break you will be the one that lifts you higher. God's standard is not like man's defenses. It is not a weak wall that crumbles under pressure. It is not a temporary fix. No, his standard is unshakable. You may not see the standard immediately. You may feel the pressure of the flood before you witness the move of God, but know this: he has never left his people stranded in the waters. It is easy to panic when the flood comes. It is easy to cry out, "Lord, where are you?" when the waters rise. But do not be afraid. Do not be shaken. Because right now, even in the midst of the storm, God is already at work. The enemy may think he has won. The battle may look like it is over. But God is about to raise a standard that will silence every attack, break every stronghold, and shift your situation in a way that only He can. So, stand firm, hold your ground. Do not let the fear of the flood make you forget the faithfulness of your Father. Because when God raises a standard, the enemy has no choice but to retreat. And when the waters recede, when the battle is over, when you stand on dry ground looking back at what should have destroyed you, you will know this truth. The flood came, but it did not take me out. Because my God lifted a standard, and the victory was already mine. When you let go of your weapons, God picks up His, and His sword never misses. There is a kind of strength that does not come from fighting, but from surrendering. A kind of power that does not come from struggle, but from stillness. The world teaches us to fight for what we want, to push through, to never back down. But God teaches us a different way. A way where victory is not earned through striving, but received through surrender. Surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that you are not meant to fight every battle with your own hands, that your strength alone is not enough. It is knowing that when you lay down your weapons, God picks up His, and His sword never misses. One of the hardest things for us to do is to let go. We like control. We like to believe that if we fight hard enough, we can fix it. If we argue enough, we can change it. If we push enough, we can make it happen. But have you ever noticed that the more you try to control something, the more it controls you? The more you fight, the more exhausted you become? That is because some battles were never meant to be fought with human hands. Some victories can only come through surrender. Look at Moses at the Red Sea. When the Israelites were trapped between the water and Pharaoh's army, fear gripped them. They were ready to fight. Some wanted to run. Others wanted to surrender to the Egyptians, believing that slavery was better than death. But Moses stood still. He did not draw a sword. He did not rally an army. He simply trusted. And in that moment, God stepped in. With one command, the sea parted, and the people walked through on dry ground. No effort on their part, just faith, just surrender. Had they tried to fight in their own strength, they would have been destroyed. But because they stood still and let God fight for them, they saw a victory that human hands could never achieve. When you fight your own battles, you may win some and lose some. You may come out wounded, bruised, and broken. But when God fights for you, His victory is absolute. His sword does not swing wildly. It does not strike in vain. It does not miss its mark. David understood this when he faced Goliath. He did not rely on the strength of a sword, the weight of armor, or the skill of battle. He walked onto that battlefield with nothing but faith. And God guided his stone straight to the enemy's head. One strike, one victory, one moment of divine precision. That is what happens when you surrender the fight to God. He does not waste time. He does not miss his target. When He steps in, the battle is over before it even begins. Some of us are still gripping our weapons, afraid to let go. We are holding on to anger because we think justice depends on us. We are holding on to worry because we believe the outcome rests in our hands. We are holding on to control because we are afraid of what will happen if we release it. But hear me, your strength is not your savior. Your effort is not your rescue. God is. When you release your grip, when you step back and let Him take over, He moves in ways you never could. He brings peace where there was chaos. He brings breakthrough where there was blockage. He brings victory where there was once only struggle. The real fight is not in winning, it is in surrendering. It is in trusting that God's plan is better than yours. It is in believing that His way is higher than yours. So today, put down your weapons. Stop trying to control what was never yours to manage. Lift your hands instead of your fists. Bow your heart instead of your will. Because when you surrender, God steps in. And when he fights, the enemy has no chance. When the dust settles, when the war is over, you will look around and realize you did not have to fight for this victory. You only had to trust for it. We live in a world that does not like to wait. We want instant answers, quick solutions, and immediate breakthroughs. But God does not move on human schedules. He does not rush because we are anxious. Nor does he delay out of neglect. His timing is perfect. And sometimes the greatest victories are won not in the moment of action, but in the season of waiting. Waiting is not a sign of weakness. It is not punishment. It is a strategy, a refining process, a sacred space where God prepares both you and your blessing. The battle is not always about how fast you move, but about how well you trust. It is in the waiting that faith is tested, that strength is built, and that victory is secured before it is seen. There is a reason why the Bible says, be Psalm 46, verse 10. Because stillness requires trust. It is easy to fight, to struggle, to push ahead with our own plans. But to stand firm, to wait while heaven moves, that requires a faith that is unshakable. Look at Abraham and Sarah. God gave them a promise, a child, a legacy, descendants as numerous as the stars. But the promise did not come right away. Days turned into months, months into years, and still no child. In their impatience, they tried to take matters into their own hands, and the result was trouble. But when they finally surrendered to God's timing, Isaac was born, and the promise. Had they waited with trust, they could have avoided unnecessary pain. But even in their impatience, God remained faithful. Because when he speaks a promise, no delay can cancel it. No waiting season can erase it. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. It does not mean sitting in despair, hoping for the best. No, waiting is active. Waiting is standing firm when everything around you is shaking. Waiting is declaring victory before you see it. When the Israelites stood before Jericho, God did not tell them to storm the walls. He did not tell them to fight. He told them to walk, to march in silence for 6 days, and then to shout on the seventh. Imagine how foolish that must have looked to their enemies. Imagine how ridiculous it must have felt to the people. But they obeyed. They waited. They followed the divine strategy instead of human law, not by their might, not by their power, but by their obedience in the waiting. Some of you are waiting for your breakthrough, your answered prayer, your open door. And it feels like nothing is happening. But let me tell you something. Heaven is moving. The walls are already trembling. The victory is already set. You may not see it yet, but do not mistake silence for inactivity. Just because God is not speaking does not mean he is not working. There is a reason why God does not always give us what we want when we want it. Some blessings require preparation. Some victories require the right moment. Some breakthroughs are waiting for things to align in a way that only God can orchestrate. If David had stepped onto the throne too soon, he would not have been ready to rule. If Joseph had left the prison early, he would not have been positioned to save a nation. If Jesus had rushed to the cross, the fullness of God's plan would not have unfolded. God is not withholding from you. He is preparing you, and he is strengthening you in the waiting. He is building endurance, faith, and trust, because when the promise comes, when the breakthrough arrives, you will be ready to handle it. The waiting season is not wasted time. It is where you win. It is where faith grows. It is where you prove that your trust in God is greater than your need for immediate results. So do not rush ahead. Do not force what is not ready. Do not let impatience lead you into battles that are not yours to fight. Stand firm. Keep believing. Keep praising. Because when God moves, he moves completely. And when your victory arrives, you will look back and realize, The waiting was never about delay. It was about preparation. Victory is sweet. We long for it, pray for it, and fight for it. But true victory, God-ordained, heaven-bed victory, is never just about us. It is never just about escaping trouble, overcoming enemies, or receiving blessings. Every battle fought and won by God carries a greater purpose. It is not just for our triumph, it is for His glory. When God steps into your battle, when He fights for you, He is not just working to bring you through, He is working to show His power, His faithfulness, and His divine plan. Your victory is not just about your story. It is about His name being made known through you. Look at David and Goliath. David did not fight Goliath just to save himself. That battle was bigger than one man. When David defeated Goliath, it was a victory for all of Israel. It was a sign to the enemy that God was with His people. It was a moment that shifted the course of history, setting David on a path to the throne and revealing God's power to a watching world. Your battle may feel personal, but your victory will impact more than just you. There are people attached to your breakthrough. There are souls watching your faith, lives being inspired by your endurance, and future generations who will stand on the testimony of what God did for you. The battles God fights for you are meant to be talked about. Your testimony is proof of His power. When the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, God did not just part the waters so they could escape. He did it so that all the nations would know that He alone was God. He made sure the enemy saw it, made sure the people felt it, made sure it was written down so that generations later we would still be speaking about it. Your testimony is not just about survival. It is about revelation. It is about showing the world that God is still in the business of making a way where there is no way. Sometimes we wonder why God even allows battles in the first place. If He's all-powerful, why doesn't He just clear the path and remove every obstacle? Because battles build faith. Victories reveal His might. Struggles show us who He is in ways that peace never could. Without the storm, the disciples would not have known that Jesus had power over the wind and waves. Without the lion's den, Daniel would not have shown a pagan king the power of God. Without the cross, we would not have known the depth of His love and the power of His resurrection. God allows battles because through them He reveals His strength, deepens our faith, and displays His glory to the world. When God brings you through, do not keep it to yourself. Your victory is meant to be shared. Your testimony is a weapon. Somebody needs to hear how God delivered you so they can believe for their own breakthrough. Somebody needs to see how He fought for you so they can trust Him to fight for them. This is why the Bible tells us in Revelation 12:11, they overcame Him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Because testimony destroys doubt. It reminds people that the same God who fought for you will fight for them. At the end of every battle, one thing must be clear. God did it. Not luck, not human strength, not coincidence. God alone. So, when you see the walls fall, when the chains break, when the storm clears, do not just celebrate, testify, give Him the glory. Let the world know that your victory was not just for you, it was for His name to be lifted high. Because when God fights for you, the world will know that He is still fighting for His people. And that, my friend, is a victory that echoes through eternity. Through every trial, through every storm, through every moment of uncertainty, one truth remains unshaken. God fights for His people. He moves in silence. He wins through surrender. He strengthens us in waiting, and He always fights with purpose. Your battles are not yours to bear alone. When you lay them in His hands, when you trust in His timing, when you stand firm in faith, victory is already assured. The enemy may come like a flood, but God will always raise a standard higher than the waves. And when the dust settles, when the war is won, your triumph will not just be for you, it will be a testimony of His power, His faithfulness, and His unfailing love.